Hello and welcome to Solving Equations with NACAmath. You have two very important vocab words you need to understand. First, terms and factors. Terms are the parts that are added together. So if you have 3x plus 5y minus 2, you have three terms. But a factor is the numbers and variables that are multiplied. So if you have 3x, you have two factors, which are 3 and x. If you had 9, for example, you could break that number into two factors, 3 times 3. Or you could break it into 1 times 9. Or you could break it into three factors, 1 times 3 times 3. So those are terms and those are factors. So easiest way to solve equations is 3 simple steps. 1, simplify. So there's two parts to the simplifying. Sometimes you need to use the distributive property to simplify an expression, and other times you just need to combine like terms to simplify an expression. Once both sides of the equation have been simplified, you can then eliminate terms by making a 0. So if you have something added, the inverse operation would be to subtract. If you have something subtracted, the inverse would be add. And if you have 5 and negative 5, that adds up to 0. Step 3 is eliminate factors by making a 1. If you have 5x, that's 5 times x, and you were to divide by 5, well, the 5's would simplify out to a 1, and so you would eliminate the factor of 5 by making a 1. So I start with easy examples, go on to harder examples. Let's try. So example number 1, I always like to build a fence first. Keeps the balance on what's on one side of the equation and what's on the other. So at the equal sign, I'm going to build a fence. And here's my variable on the left, so I want to get it by itself. So I want to eliminate this term, because there's one term is n and the other term is a negative 4. So I want to eliminate that negative 4, so the inverse is plus 4. So if I have n minus 4 plus 4, does minus 4 plus 4 make a 0? Yes, so I'm going to make a 0, so n and 0, n plus 0 is just n. And then what is 7 plus 4? That is 11. Okay? Over here, example number 2, I have z divided by 4, because a fraction is division. So where the equal sign is, I'm going to start with building my fence. I want to get the z by itself. Right now it's being divided by 4, so the inverse of divide by 4 is multiply by 4. How I like to show multiply by 4 is I like to write 4 over 1 times it, because you said multiply by 4. So I'm multiplying by 4 on that side, I'm multiplying by 4 on this side. What I see is those 4's actually simplify out and make a giant 1, if you want to think of it that way. And so what am I left with is just a z. And over here I have 3 times 4, which is 12. Great. Number 3, example number 3. Again, I'm going to start with the building of the fence. And my goal is to get the x by itself. Well, in this one, I have 2 terms, and this term has 2 factors. So if I start with simplify, I don't have any distributive property, I don't have any combined like terms, so I need to start by eliminating terms by making a 0. If I was to try and divide by the 3, would that eliminate that term? No, it would just make a 1. And I can't do that first because I would also have to divide this by 3 and this by 3. It would get really ugly. You can do that, but you would have to divide all parts by 3. So instead, sometimes I like to think of it as doing PEMDAS backwards. Okay? But I'm going to first eliminate this term. I want to get rid of this positive 5. So the inverse of positive 5 is minus 5. If I do it to one side, I want to do it to the other. So if I have 3x plus 5 minus 5, this makes 0, and I'm left with 3x. And 19 minus 5 is 14. The second step then is to divide by 3. Now you can say divide by 3, or it could actually multiply by 1/3. If you see divide by 3, what happens is the 3 over the 3 simplify down to a 1, and I'm left with just the x. And depending on your teacher, you can leave it as 14 over 3. if you would like, you could also make it into a mixed number. 3 goes into 14 4 times with 2 left over out of 3. In example number 4, I'm going to start again with building my fence where the equal sign is. I want to do the same thing to both sides of the equation to keep it balanced. But in this one, do I have something I can simplify at this point? Yeah, I can combine like terms. These are both on the same side of the equation, so I can combine them. They both have the same variable raised to the same power. So 2/5 y and 8/5 y makes 10/5 y, and I still have minus 8 equals 2. Okay, so I now have 2 factors, and I want to, or excuse me, 2 terms, and I still want to eliminate terms by making a 0. I can't eliminate this 10/5 yet, but I can eliminate the minus 8. What's the inverse of minus 8? Plus 8. So I need to do that to both sides of the equation. If I have minus 8 and plus 8, that makes 0. So I'm left with 10/5 y. Well, wait, what is 10/5 y? 10 divided by 5 is 2. So this is actually just 2y. And then what's 2 plus 8? 10. Now remember in this one where we said divide by 3? You can do that again. You can divide by 2, because that's the number, or I could actually do something similar to this where I multiply, and instead I'm going to multiply by what would make it a 1. Because remember, I'm eliminating factors by making a 1. So what can I multiply 2 by to get to 1? Half. If I multiply this by half, right, you can see that those 2's will simplify out. So I'm going to multiply this side also by a half. So those simplify out to basically 1, and I'm left with y. And on this side I have 10 times a half.
Everything
Half
is
of 10.
great. Everything is grand. I got the whole